Welcome to Complexity Made Simple. My name is Paul Allen, and before we get on to today's video, just a reminder of how you can support the channel. Please subscribe, please leave comments on all the videos because that really does help. But if you want to support the channel further, there is a donation page. Please go to Buy Me a Coffee and leave a donation, which is always fantastically helpful. Keeps the channel moving and allows me to make all of this fresh material. But if you want a textbook that contains all the good stuff from the videos, please click on the link and buy Drink Tea and Read the Paper from lulu.com. All of these things really help the channel. Thank you to all the people that continue to buy this textbook. It really is fantastically helpful. Now let's get on to today's video. Welcome to the latest video, and in this video newsletter we're going to go and discuss the 7 or 8 wastes again from lean. And this is a reply to a recent video by Tom Mentick. Go and look at Tom. I do love lots of Tom's videos. So he recently made a video about 7 or 8 lean wastes. And I think Tom knew when he made the video that he might be just giving me a little prod and waking up a bee's nest. So I thought I would just make another video on this subject. And what I'd like to do though in this video is explain my rationale by why I like to stick with the 7 wastes. Okay, so there is a very particular rationale behind my thought, which isn't just about whether it's right or wrong. It's actually about whether it's useful to helping my clients. So part of what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get clients to think in a different way. Okay, so I'm trying to get clients to think in a different way. Now, if I look at let's look at the what I'm going to call the 7 wastes. All right, so we're going to go Tim Wood. So let's see if I can remember these things. Sometimes I can't always remember all 7. So transport, inventory, I would say unnecessary inventory to be honest, motion, over process, over processing, over production, defects, work in progress. Okay, so they're the traditional 7 wastes, and of course the 8th waste is unused human capability, people waste essentially. All right, so there's the 7 plus 1. All right, now my view about this all goes to my history of process improvement. All right, so if you talk to any business about process improvement, they will undoubtedly tell you that they have spent the last 40 years doing process improvement. Okay, so I'm going to go back 40 years to when I first became a work study engineer. So I was a work study engineer. Now in the UK, what does that mean? It means concentrating on people productivity. That's basically what we did. We measured people and we worked out efficiency and we worked out bonus systems and we concentrated on people productivity. And to be quite honest, when I learned to do this back in 1980, people had been looking at people productivity for 40, 50 years. That's what we'd been working on. Now, there was a good reason for looking at people productivity, because the biggest cost in a manufacturing company was usually the labour. So they were concentrating on getting rid of people waste. All right, so that's what we focused on. But even as I left this role, back in the 1990s, even as I left this role, I knew that this behaviour, there was something wrong with it. And here's the reason why. Back in the 1990s, manufacturing company that I was working in, and this was my experience of most manufacturing at the time. I don't know what the numbers are today, but anyway, for every pound that we spent making a product, 10% of it was people. 10% was direct labour, okay, direct labour. 30% of it, certainly in the companies I was in, was material. So this is people. And 60% was overhead. So why were we spending all our time here obsessing about this thing when actually this is the biggest cost? Now to me, this is what lean does. Lean challenges this thing here. That's why it's so powerful. You can smash this number to pieces with lean. And I mean smash it to pieces. I mean lop 50%, 60% off that thing and literally knock lumps out of your costs. Yeah, so, and that's what all of these are. They're all about overhead. So we're obsessed. We've been obsessed about people for 100 years. So if I put anything related to people on here, like this thing, I know the companies that I'm working with will just go and behave the same old way and go to the people productivity waste and focus on that. This must never be about people. It is never about people. This is never about machinery. None of this is about people or machinery. It's only one thing: flow time. And I say that to my clients to keep their thought process completely clear and also to completely change their way of thinking. To say, forget productivity, look at flow time. And then when I say to them, lean is about thinking completely different, I can be clear and unambiguous with them. They don't get confused and they get on the right road to thinking the right way about the wastes. Okay? Now, this does appear, however, I'm going to concede this eighth waste. But what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at Dan Jones. I was fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time in Dan's company a couple of weeks ago at the International Lean Six Sigma conference in Cambridge. And John was awarded something like a Lifetime Achievement Award. And Dan made a little speech about lean and lean implementation and what he learned over his career. And I want to use that little speech to just go through the 7 wastes and where the 8th waste eventually appears. So let's take a look at Dan speaking now.
Helping companies engage in pioneering experiments to try lean in pretty well every sector you can imagine, from government to healthcare to construction to manufacturing to retailing. And through that, actually, we've learnt that there's a lot more to lean. In fact, I think lean is a journey. And we've been on a very long journey and we're still learning all the time.
So the first important thing he says there, it's a journey. And this is really important, it's a very long journey. So the start of the journey is going to be the 7 wastes. The 7 wastes are going to come in very, very early in our journey, okay? This thing is very late in our journey. So we're going to follow Dan's logic through. and we're going to see where the 7 are and where this last one eventually appears.
Constantly facing complex questions and going back to the Toyota senseis and asking, well, why doesn't this quite work? And the Toyota sensei, of course, immediately replies with another question, not with the answer, and tells us, asks you a question that provokes you to think in a different way about the challenge that you're trying to face. So initially, I think all of you, we start off by realizing that a lot of work has to be done to organize away from managing discrete activities to trying to create flow in work.
So there is Dan's step 1. First thing about this, we're going to think differently. You've got to be provoked to think differently. So the first thing is, it's about flow. It's about flow of your orders or your service, obviously to service the customer. So that's point 1. We're starting with flow. That's what makes us think differently. That's why, but I want to keep away from this because I want people to change their point of view about where the opportunity lies. It lies in flow. Let's carry on with Dan's video.
I mean, work is not configured that way. It's often not synchronized. It's often subject to multiple interruptions, and it's often subject to completely chaotic forecasts of demand. And so the first step, of course,
there's another one of Dan's key points. So he keeps this very simple. The chaotic forecast. You have to learn how to get rid of this thing. By the way, it's very easy to do. It takes about 1 hour to get rid of the chaotic forecast if you just know how to look at your numbers correctly. And it really is job 1. But there's more to what Dan's going to say about getting rid of the chaotic forecast. Let's continue.
Is really to use the lean tools to begin to integrate steps together, tackling the obstacles to doing that, so that you begin to create flow. And you realize, of course, that the first step is to create stability, basic stability in all of the steps that you're trying to integrate. Without that, you get nowhere.
Okay, so the chaotic forecast is part of creating stability. Now, of course, create stability, we have these 2 Japanese words. I wish we just used the word create stability, but we want to get rid of the mura and the muri. One is unevenness, variability, usually coming from this. One is unevenness, one is overburden, extra activities that your operators have become used to doing, which is over and above the standard work that you expect them to do, which is weighing them down, and it creates instability. So chaotic forecast creates stability. So flow creates stability. By the way, none of this is about people at this point. This is completely different to anything we've done for the last 100 years. And I want people to know that. So I don't want people on this list because they will default to their old habits. Let's keep listening to Dan.
Without that, you don't have a basis for improvement. So basic stability, and then linking steps, ideally back from the customer, steps one at a time, sorting out the obstacles to putting them in flow, and addressing the issues of interruptions and so on, and creating a visual management system to see the performance of the system in real time.
So now, as we get stability, now what we start to do is we look at the reasons for the interruptions and the things that get in the way of flow. Now what are we turning to? Now we turn to the 7 wastes. Okay, and now we spend time. And by the way, this is relatively easy to do at this point. It's not quick to do, But most of the things, most of the 7 wastes, big lumps of 7 wastes, exist because of the rules that you use in your factory and the systems that you use. And if you quickly replace those systems, the 7 wastes just get ripped out of your factory relatively easily. There's no investment needed, except your time. Except your time and your inspiration to do this. Alright, so now we're on to the 7 wastes, and at this point I'm keeping the people out of here because I want to change everybody's mind about what lean really is. Let's look at Dan now and what he continues to say.
So that you can respond to those interruptions quickly rather than wait for somebody else to come and sort them out for you. So basic stability, visual management quickly leads to the situation where...
So that little bit there, of course, what's he talking about? Well, it's step 5 here, kind of handy, because really what are we talking about? 5S, visual management. As I say, this is cheap to do, but it's hard yards. You've got to do the whole factory, the whole environment has got to be changed, the whole culture has got to be changed, and the whole way of thinking has got to be changed. Chasing people has got to go. Let's keep looking at Dan.
You get stability and you begin to get some compression of the time, but that's just the first step, of course. Then you're ready for some more serious experiments to improve the way the system works as a whole, the synchronization and the interruptions. And that's when you really get seriously into problem solving. And teaching problem solving is the beginning of a really long journey.
Step 6, problem solving. And really important, giving people permission to experiment, to try new ways of working, to trial things, to do a pilot to prove, so that they can move the lean waste on. Getting rid of the 7 wastes initially, as I say, you'll take lumps out really quickly. But then what you're going to need to sit and think about it and experiment with new ways. And now we start to move into this guy right here. But by the way, this thing is going to take you years. Down to here, this potentially. This is 3-4 years of hard work. Embedding the first 5 of those steps there before we get into problem solving. Now initially you're going to have experts work to lead teams to problem solve. But what Dan's going to suggest is that we get everyone to do this. So let's just go back to the video and hear the last few statements now.
And that means a management system on the shop floor, in the teams and around the teams and across the plants that is very different, that is focused on engaging people in creating stability, in creating flow, but also in making improvements, conducting experiments to reduce the amount of waste and so on in the process. And that management system leads you to realize that, in fact, the job of lean managers is actually to develop the capabilities of people in solving problems. It isn't just the answers to the specific questions that you're solving that is actually important. What's important is how you learn to use the scientific process.
And there's the 8th waste. There's the last bit. So what's he saying? Well, okay, problem solving and experiment, but then finally, what do you want? You want a management system that actually underpins all of this and promotes all of this, and it needs to support all the teams, all the sites. Yeah, so the management system is going to do this, and what are you trying to do? You're trying to develop problem solving in all of your people, and there is the 8th waste right there, Because currently, what have you got? You've got 1,000 people in your company, maybe 100 of them are management. It's only the 100 management that do the thinking. Sometimes you wonder if the 100 management do any thinking at all, but anyway. And you've got all of these people who are just doers, and you're missing all their human capability and the fact that they could help come up with new ideas, better ideas to improve flow. In other words, to remove the 7 wastes. So that's the journey that you go on. This is late in your journey. Think about it. We're driving from York to London. If you include this thing on the list, what you're trying to do, you're trying to decide how to navigate London before we've travelled the 200 miles down the M1. And that's what we got to do. Put the 7 wastes on the table. Let's get moving. Let's get out of York. Let's get onto the M1. Let's get this journey really moving. Moving fast and furious. And we're learning a new way of thinking. And then when we start to slow down and get bogged down, what have we got to do? Well, we've got to negotiate the flipping hard yards of going through London. You've got to negotiate this, but this is going to come after 3 or 4 years. If I let my clients think about people, at the very beginning, they will just concentrate on people productivity. And now they're thinking the same old way. I haven't changed their thinking. That is why I don't want the 8th waste anywhere near my list. I want my clients to be thinking a new way, clearly and unambiguous. And once they've spent 3 or 4 years doing that, I'm going to hit them with navigating through London. I'm going to hit them with the more difficult thing to do, which is to do this. But if you put this on the list, they'll never change their mind. They'll just they'll just continue with the same old crap that they've been going through for the last 100 years. They'll never go lean. And that, my friends, is why I don't like the 8th waste. It's a personal thing. I'm not saying it's the right thing. We all have our ways of convincing people to work in a new way. I'm not saying that my way is right or wrong. It just is what I use, and I'm very comfortable with it. And so when I say to you, don't have 8 wastes, I'm trying to pass that piece of knowledge on. And I thought, rather than have a rant and sound like a grumpy old man, I'd explain my thinking a little bit more clearly. Hopefully you've got that. Hopefully that's helpful, and it'll help you to go lean. And of course, what do I want you to do? Make bucket loads of cash.